Hey guys, and welcome to Toxic Praise. Instead of shit-talking films, this series I'm going to be praising them and recommending a lot of films to you guys. To start this off, I'm going to be listing my favorite films of all time at the time of me recording this. I will have both my Letterboxd and my list in the description if you want to check them out. Most of these films I will be talking in depth about, while a few in here I'll just mention and move on. So let's start off with the guilty pleasures. Friday. The score, the acting, the sound design, all outstanding and phenomenal. Ice Cube sold the film for me when he opened up his cabinet, looked at the Crunchies box, and said, "Yeah!" Black Dynamite. The film that came before the TV series, Black Dynamite is one of my favorite comedies ever. I can't tell if the way it's presented is made intentional or was accidental, but either way it ended up being a great film. Holes is a type of film I don't usually see on a lot of favorite lists. I don't have a lot to say about this film other than it's just great. Alright, so let's get into the actual list. Suspiria. The first time I watched this, I wasn't feeling too much at the beginning, but as soon as the second act hit, I was hooked. I love the visually stunning imagery, and it actually shows some pretty creepy things that I believe won't get out of my head anytime soon. Recommend to anyone who's a fan of horror. Leon the Professional. I'm in love with this movie. The connection between the characters blew me away, and this is a masterpiece. Back to the Future. While it's not perfect, it's certainly one of the most feel-good films I've ever seen. Every time I watch it, there's not a second that goes by where I don't have a smile on my face, and very few films are able to do that with me. You Were Never Really Here. Joaquin Phoenix doesn't make a lot of movies. It's easy to forget about him when he's not around, but then once he shows up, you're like, oh yeah, he's basically the best actor in the world. The Departed. This movie is downright amazing. All the performances are great. Just goes to show that Martin Scorsese knows what the hell he's doing. It Comes a Night. A heart-pumping, chill-inducing, and intelligent work of gripping character-driven drama and pure psychological horror. It Comes a Night is a rare and refreshing thriller that downright refuses to grab you by the hand at any point, with fantastic performances, beautiful cinematography, tense atmosphere, and superb storytelling that wisely leaves certain things up to the audience's imagination. Enemy. This is definitely the type of film that just immediately screams to be viewed again. It's beautifully shot, exceptionally acted. Enemy is a nightmare of a film for both protagonists and its audience.
Why is she called Aunt Fatty?
Couldn't call her Aunt Booty.
Whoa!
Robots. What else can I say other than the fact that I watched this film all the time growing up, and it still holds up to this day. Also, Bigwell's in it. Up. The first 10 minutes are great for introducing children to the concept of sadness. John Wick. Who would win? The Russian Mafia or one angry boy? John Wick is probably one of my favorite action films I've ever seen, primarily due to its mysterious world and the emotional anchor for the hero.
Comment dire, avec quelque chose d'angélique que vous n'aviez pas. Angélique, je ne sais pas. Quand je suis devant la glace, j'ai l'impression d'être devant quelqu'un qui me ressemble.
Eyes Without a Face. This has to be one of my favorite horror films of all time. The effects are great, especially for the time it was made. It has a Frankenstein-esque style to it, with the story revolving around a mad scientist killing women and taking off their faces in order to create a mask for his deformed daughter. It's a tragic story that makes my heart skip a beat just with its cinematography. Clerks. Clerks is an incredible film. Some may say it's Smith's best film, and honestly I can see why. It is goddamn amazing. Green Room. A24 never ceases to amaze me with how fucking good of films they produce. Green Room is a nightmare that definitely needs more recognition. The film is on Netflix, give it a watch, and go in as dry as possible. Brilliant and nail-biting film that I will most likely be checking out again soon. Blindspotting. Blindspotting is the kind of film that provokes hours of conversation. Only masterpieces and rememberably terrible movies do that, and this film is a former.
Believe in any,
supernatural, the metaphysical, the paranormal stuff.
Right.
You never would have moved into a crime scene if you did.
Sinister. Still holds up as one of the better mainstream horror movies from the past decade. The score and the atmosphere of this film is creepy as hell. The Grand Budapest Hotel. Beautiful, funny, smart, silly, sad, fantastic. I will probably see this movie at least a dozen more times in my lifetime, and I cannot wait. One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. Another film to add to the list of I'm not crying, it's just raining on my face. Scott Pilgrim vs. the World. It's milk and eggs, bitch. Forever and always will be the best line of any movie ever made.
Dorcia, yes?
Yeah, can you take 2 tonight at, let's say 9 o'clock?
Oh, we're totally booked.
Really? That's great.
No, I said we are totally booked.
2 at 9? Perfect. See you then.
American Psycho. Any movie that has a scene where a guy gets brutally murdered while Huey Lewis in the news plays in the background is an automatic masterpiece in my book. Moonrise Kingdom. I don't know what else to say about this film. It's amazing and cute as fuck. The Evil Dead. Evil Dead is 85 minutes of splatter foggy atmosphere, solid acting, and tremendous visual storytelling. Psycho. I have nothing to say about this. Not like in a dude I'm speechless way, I just have nothing new to say about it. Yeah, it's good. On to the next one. Rear Window. If you haven't seen this film yet, you have something wonderful to look forward to. They didn't call Alfred Hitchcock the master of suspense for no reason. At first glance, the fake movie set and background may be a bit distracting, but trust me, once the story starts to unfold, you will get lost in one of the most thrilling and suspenseful plots ever created. Gone Girl. Most definitely up there with some of the most brilliant films I've ever seen. Everything down to the score and acting is all on the nose and perfect. Casablanca. I hate it when people say stuff like, you should watch this because it's a masterpiece. Those people are annoying idiots. Also, you should watch this because it's a masterpiece. The Wall. I'm not going to say anything other than the fact that if you are at all a fan of Pink Floyd's music, this is a must-watch. Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. Best trip I ever had without doing any drugs. Falling Down. Shit goes down, lives are ended, gangsters get owned, shops get destroyed, and a guy doesn't get his breakfast. Falling Down. Watch it now. Inglourious Bastards. The first 10 minutes in this film is breathtaking how intense and well written it is. If you like history films and Tarantino's gore, definitely give this one a shot. No Country for Old Men. The lack of a main score, the quiet dialogue between characters, and the vast empty landscapes of the desert make all of the short bursts of violence all the more gut-wrenching and disturbing. Fargo. Is Fargo a phenomenal movie? Oh yeah, you betcha. The Killing of a Sacred Deer. Yet another A24 film on this list, and yet another brilliant masterpiece. Brazil. I have to be honest, the first time I saw this film I wasn't getting into it a whole lot. I ended up turning it off around an hour in, but as soon as I revisited it, I knew it was one of the best films I have ever seen. Dr. Strangelove. The irony in this film is just perfect.
You filthy bully, you filthy... You sell your guy, you've not tasted karate before, eh? You war mastering bully.
Gentlemen, you can't fight in here. This is the war room.
Burn After Reading. I fucking love the shot of Brad Pitt dancing in the car. The Coen brothers are absolute geniuses and their writing is unlike any other.
Le jour était venu pour les enfants dragues de participer à leur première méditation. La cérémonie de l'initiation marquait pour eux une étape essentielle sur le chemin de la connaissance.
Fantastic Planet. I've seen this film 4 times now and Jesus, this movie is amazing. If you haven't seen it, you should drop everything you're doing right now and watch it.
Good morning!
Morning. Good morning.
Oh, and in case I don't see you, good afternoon, good evening, and good night.
The Truman Show. Without a doubt, The Truman Show is one of the smartest, most creative, and thought-provoking films to ever hit the big screen. It's not only a brilliant satire of reality television, it is also a remarkable reflection of society itself. Fantastic Mr. Fox. There's just something strangely personal that this film managed to pull off, but no other film has done. It's like looking into a mirror or watching the exact film I would want to make someday. Paths of Glory. I wait for the one time I watch this again where I finally cry at the end of the film. Every time this film ends, I always just want to press play and rewatch it again. Citizen Kane. What else can I say other than the fact that Orson Welles was ahead of his time? Old Boy. Not the 2013 remake directed by Spike Lee, but the original Old Boy from 2003. This film is absolutely outstanding. The acting is so powerful and is some of the greatest I've ever seen. Literally everything about it was phenomenal. This film has some of the best fight scenes I've ever seen. I highly recommend seeing Old Boy. Do not watch the remake. There Will Be Blood.
I'm fixed like no other company in this field, and that's because my Coyote Hills well has just come in. I have a string of tools all ready to put to work. I can load a rig onto trucks and have them here in a week. I have business connections, so I can get the lumber for the derrick. Such things go by friendship in a rush like this.
It is extremely rare to come across a motion picture that defines perfection from the first frame to the last. Paul Thomas Anderson's There Will Be Blood is one of those films that fits. It is a jaw-dropping work of originality and deserves to be ranked amongst the greatest films ever made. Now I'm about to go into my top 20 favorite films of all time. 20. Taxi Driver. Not to sound like that annoying kid in your film class that's always vaping and wearing 60 layers of plaid, but this movie is fucking perfect. 19. Shaun of the Dead. I've tried my best to think of another film that manages to be a perfect tribute to comedy and a horror in one, and I seriously can't think of any. 18. Baby Driver. I've lost track of how many times I've seen this film. I've seen it way too much, but that doesn't stop me from coming back. Edgar Wright is one of the best directors I've ever seen working today, and Baby Driver is definitely up there with his best works. 17. Rango. Rango's definitely one of my favorite animated movies ever, and it is so incredibly bizarre, as well as one of the coolest things visually. Johnny Depp's voice performance is perfect in bringing spectacular life to the character. Same goes for the entire supporting cast, actually. And of course, I absolutely love the Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas references. 16. 2001: A Space Odyssey. This is cinema in its purest form. Every aspect of this particular art form is used to its fullest extent. It exposes themes without narrative, offers no explanations, but leaves room for interpretation. No other director than Kubrick could have made this. 15.
The Godfather.
This is definitely the most intense episode of Family Feud. 14. Cool Hand Luke. Any man who doesn't like this movie gets a night in the box. 13. Synecdoche, New York. A movie that depicts the most beautiful, saddest, most tragic, yet comical art called life. Rest in peace, Philip Seymour Hoffman. 12. Eraserhead. After watching Eraserhead for the first time, I knew I would have to revisit it in order to truly understand it. After researching it and hearing others' interpretations on Eraserhead, I knew that a rewatch was necessary, now that I knew the story. And oh my, did I enjoy it so much more. It is a horrifying and disgusting film that feels exactly like a dream or a nightmare. David Lynch is a genius. Take my word for it, and go in as dry as possible the first time. Then do some research and listen to how other people interpreted it, and then once you understand what it all means, it doesn't just feel like random things happening on screen. It feels like so much more. Eraserhead is a classic and a film that I will definitely be checking out many more times in the future. 11.
This is the girl. Excellent choice.
Mulholland Drive. This is one of the only films I've ever seen that accurately depicts what dreams are like. Eat David Lynch's shorts, Inception. 10. Hot Fuzz. Hot Fuzz is the story of Sergeant Nicholas Angel, hard-boiled super cop. Imitated by his arrest record, his superior officers transfer him from the busy streets of London to the sleepy village of Sanford to keep him out of the way and balance the books because, to be honest, he's making the rest of them look bad. A big cop in a small town, Angel sees murders and conspiracies, where the rest of the cops and locals see accidents. But with the help of his partner, Danny Butterman, it's not long before he discovers that not everything in Sanford is quite what it seems. Sound cliched? Good, that's the point. Once settled in Sanford, Hot Fuzz becomes a vehicle designed to send up every action film that has ever taken itself even slightly seriously. And it does this brilliantly by simply taking everything from these films and pushing them a bit further, making them appear both ridiculous and awesome at the same time. As with Shaun of the Dead, the people behind Hot Fuzz are affectionately poking fun at the genre that they clearly love, creating a film that embraces its genre's ridiculousness and is all better for it. 9. The Shining. The Shining is not only a masterclass in horror, but in filmmaking, and a film that will continue to unsettle audiences for decades to come. 8. The Big Lebowski. God, what an outstanding film. After the first time I saw it, I was thinking about it so much I wanted to check it out once again. The film has one of my favorite scores combined with an all-star cast equaling up to one of my favorite films of all time that makes me laugh every single time. 7. Whiplash. Being a percussionist myself seemed to add another personal level with this film, but oh my god, I didn't think this film was going to be as phenomenal as it was. It is an absolute masterpiece. Words cannot describe J.K. Simmons' performance, but numbers can. 1 billion out of 10. Everything in Whiplash is all outstanding. Not only is the film phenomenal, but if you are a percussionist like I am, it definitely adds another personal level. Definitely a high recommendation from me. 6. The Nightmare Before Christmas. I bet a lot of people who know me in real life are shocked right now. Jacob, you put The Nightmare Before Christmas, the film you fucking adore, at number 6 in your favorite films list, and I understand why you think that. The Nightmare Before Christmas is the start of me being hooked on cinema. Ever since I was little, the first time I saw it aired on TV, and I began to want to make films of my own. The Nightmare Before Christmas is the most inspirational film for me, and it's morphed me into the person I am today. And yes, I am a little shocked that it is slightly low on this list, but that doesn't mean I don't like it. Not at all. I watch this film at least once a year, and I find myself quoting almost every line of dialogue in the film. This film is a big piece of me, and that's why it's one of my favorite films of all time. 5. Hereditary. Pretty big jump between those two. I went from talking about a film that inspired me to a film that almost made me piss myself. I talked about this film countless of times on this channel, but I have to say it again. This film gave me one of the most unsettling experiences in the theater I've ever had. Walking into this film is like walking into a true nightmare, blah, blah, blah. This film is fucking outstanding. And I cannot wait for Ari Aster's next film, Midsummer, to come out next year. 4. 12 Angry Men. It's not often I call a film perfect, but 12 Angry Men is perfect. This film is about 12 jurymen deciding whether a boy who is convicted of killing his father should live or die. All of them vote for guilty except for Juror 8, who votes not guilty. What began as an open and shut case soon becomes a mini-drama of each of the jurors' prejudices about the trial, the accused, and each other. The dialogue in this film is just so intriguing. Listening to each of these jurors talk about why they think the boy is guilty is just so interesting. If you're not interested at the start of the film, there's a certain piece of evidence that I will not spoil, of course, that comes around 20 minutes in the film, and as soon as it hits, if you weren't hooked already, you are now. The more and more evidence comes in, the more and more you become invested. This movie is a masterpiece. That term gets thrown around a lot, and it's a very easy thing to say about great films like this, but this movie is one of the best. This is one of the very few films I will call perfect. 3. A Clockwork Orange. This film is extraordinary and unlike anything I've ever seen. The story is just fantastic. The film is based off of a book of the same name written by Anthony Burgess. The book is no more than 150 pages long and is relatively short, but this film is over 2 hours long, yet it does not feel stretched out. The story may be short, but oh boy, is it enjoyable. In fact, it had me wishing it were longer. A Clockwork Orange is Stanley Kubrick's masterpiece, full of overwhelming images, exuberant characters, and an unforgettable plot that will stay fresh in your mind long after viewing, and makes it an aesthetically important film. 2. Goodfellas. First time I saw this, I was so upset for holding off on it so long. Goodfellas is an absolute masterpiece, and I cannot recommend this film enough. If you love cinema and movies as much as I do yourself a favor and watch this one. You will not regret it. And my number 1 favorite film of all time is A Talking Cat. Looping music, stock footage, actors film on different days, more wandering shots in a forest than The Reverend, and Eric Roberts' voice work. After doing it in his closet and being put over a cat with lips from Microsoft Paint. Ah shit, I accidentally read off the wrong script. My number 1 film of all time is... Come on. What were you expecting? I have a game for all of you. Take a shot every time they swear in this movie. Jokes aside, this film is literally the greatest thing that I've ever seen. Every single time I rewatch this film. Every single time. I'm yelling out the quotes, I'm saying every line, I'm drinking a $5 milkshake. I cannot get enough of this film. Every scene is filled to the brim with phenomenal dialogue and excellent acting. Pulp Fiction is a film I find myself sitting through the entire thing without getting up a single time every time I watch it. Every time I get sucked in by Vincent talking about hamburgers, Jules quoting the Bible, Tim Roth talking about robbing the diner, Butch getting caught by Marcellus Wallace and giving one of my favorite line deliveries. Everything about this film is the reasons why I love Quentin Tarantino, and I always see myself watching this film about 1 million more times in the future.